Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you from the SyncUp Colombo community. I'm back. I think last week I wasn't on screen. We had Tarindu hosting the show with our guest last week. And today I'm back for this weekly session we are having on every Friday evening at 8 p.m. So we are getting our audience coming in. We have 12 viewers I can see coming in. I think mostly coming from Facebook. Do we have people coming in from LinkedIn today? Because we are live streaming to LinkedIn as well. So if you are coming in from LinkedIn, let me know. And yes, we have one viewer from LinkedIn saying hello to us. Shavindra is with us from LinkedIn. From Facebook, who is here from Facebook? So let us know in the comment from where you are joining. So, and please share this feed because we need to get people connected as we go into the meat of the program, the main content of the program. Okay, we have Gihan, we have Yomal, we have Kumar. Yes, hi Kumar. I think I'm seeing you after a long time on LinkedIn, and we have Johans coming from LinkedIn. I think mostly today we are getting the audience from LinkedIn, and Kusal also from LinkedIn, Tisal from LinkedIn. So we have quite a lot of people who are joining us today from LinkedIn and Facebook audience. Please keep sharing your feed, your live feed with your friends and invite others to join as well. Okay, now before we get going with today's entire lineup, I have to introduce, or I'm going to introduce you a new face today. A new face who is joining the SyncUp Colombo community, SyncUp community. You remember, like in last few weeks, we've been inviting people to write to us if you are interested in joining as a SyncUp Colombo root community members. And we got few requests, and as a result of such a request, we have today one more new addition to the SyncUp regular team. And I'm going to introduce you in a minute, or not in a minute, in a second, in few seconds. And she is none other than Hafsa. Hi, Hafsa. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Amita. I'm good. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, we are really glad to have you here as a host today, a co-host today. I'm sure Hafsa will be joining with us for many of the upcoming sessions as well. So, Hafsa, for the benefit of others, why don't you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here to join in this team. So about myself, okay, so it's I started studying biomedical science, and then later I joined corporate world, and then I got interested in marketing and mainly digital marketing, and I'm still studying digital marketing, but this is a field that I'm really very interested in, and I want to progress in this field. And I feel like no matter what career, like even if I choose to continue my biomedical science in the future, or even start a business or anything, this studying digital marketing is going to really help me. So that is why I'm very much interested in this field.
Right, great
Yeah.
to hear. Actually, so you see, it's a very interesting story, Hafsa. Like, I mean, you are coming from a biomedical science background and learning digital marketing. Now, today, joining as a co-host of live streaming. This is where the world is moving: the
Yeah.
digitization and digitization of content. Right. So, audience. Today, Hafsa is going to host the news section for us. So Hafsa, what do we have in store? What are the
Yeah,
latest
so
news?
I have gathered some interesting news. So the first news, the
Hmm.
big news is that TikTok overtakes Facebook as the world's most downloaded app. So
All right.
despite various challenges like it being banned in India and the US government push to ban the app entirely, its popularity is only growing. So
Yeah.
one thing is people are already in Facebook and Instagram. So like downloading statics like don't really tell much about usage in themselves. But still, this becomes the first non-Facebook mobile app to break the record, following the other apps like WhatsApp and Instagram, which are all owned by the Facebook. And also lots of innovations happening with the TikTok, like they have added a new feature of users being able to upload video resumes. So video resumes like is becoming an in thing now. So
Right.
it is a way, yeah, for applicants to creatively and authentically showcase their skill sets and experiences. So I
Mhm.
think adding this feature, like it's going to help people, find jobs, and for companies to find true talents, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, and
Okay.
all,
So
yeah.
yeah. So what else we have? Yeah.
Yeah, and then big brands like Gap and KFC also
Uh-huh.
using TikTok for marketing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I also read an article where it was about marketing to TikTok, and what they were saying that when you're creating content for TikTok, you should like when brands when they want to create content, they should make TikToks and not make ads. So
Yeah,
like
definitely. I
yeah,
mean, that's the thing. I mean, lot of the brands they are trying to, trying to come to TikTok, but what they simply do is they try to create ads on TikTok. That shouldn't be the
ads, yeah.
case. I think they have to understand the the real neurons of the network. So how the
Mm,
network works, what ticks TikTok. They have to
yeah.
understand that, and you have to, as brands also, you have to do the same. So I think
Yeah,
Tivanka had a great case study last week. He mentioned
yeah,
that his brand, he got like 100,000 views for one of his TikToks for his
yeah,
company. So those are real amazing stories to hear. Yes.
yeah. And TikTok is a platform where like realness and authenticity are like celebrated. Like
Mm,
people are just themselves in TikTok. So I think,
absolutely.
yeah. So I think when brands also when they are creating stories like and like creating content, they should take that into uh, consideration when they are creating ads for the TikTok, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And Hafsa, I saw that you had some more news from other platforms as well. What else we
Yeah.
have? We have Instagram story, right? Yeah.
Yes. So Instagram adds new features to help protect users from bullying and abuse. So
Mm,
this was after the abuse aimed at the UK soccer players during the recent
mm.
Euro 2020 championship final. So
All
then
right.
they are sort of like bringing all these new features so that these content creators and public figures can
Mm,
stay safe online.
yeah.
So yeah, and Instagram they already have this feature where they can so personal accounts can switch off their DMs from people who don't follow them.
Yeah.
And also there's a option limit option is there, which also
Hmm.
temporarily limits unwanted comments and messages.
Yeah.
And also yeah, and there's another displays a warning message also for offensive
Yeah.
comments.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, adding these features, I was as you speak, actually, what I was thinking about was now, few years ago, like when
Mm,
this cyberbullying and abuse online on social media, when this discussion happened, most of the social networking sites, what they simply said was, okay, we are a platform, we are an open platform where various different people come and communicate, interact with each other. So if you don't like something, you can simply report it and then we'll take action, or you can take legal action. So I mean, they simply washed off I mean,
mm,
saying such things. But I
yeah.
think recently, for last couple of years, the pressure on these social networking sites was immense. There was so
Mm,
much of pressure coming from the society, from various different organizations, voluntary organizations, and all that. I think now they are responding to this. They have realized that, like, if they don't respond to this by the way of adding new features to curb this, so very soon this is going to be a social crisis. It's
yeah.
really great to see that Instagram is taking these things
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah, and people, yeah, they say that it's about free speech, but it like free speech has a
Yeah,
limit, right?
exactly. Yeah,
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 not everything can be tolerated, and people have to feel safe online.
yeah.
So that is social networks that they have to do it. And the other news is WhatsApp previews new option to import your chat between
Mhm.
Android and iOS. So this was a long requested feature. Because of the privacy feature of the app, it makes it impossible to log in on another operating system and access the
Mhm.
full chat history. So
Mhm.
now you can, like, even if you switch from an Android to an iOS, you will be able to download all the chat history. So to maintain discussions and context when changing phones. So they're going
Mhm.
to first. This is going to be available for Samsung phones first.
Right.
So yeah. So it's going to benefit the Samsung. So the users, if they are switching from iPhone to Samsung. So
Yeah.
this is yeah, part of the FB's broader data portability push.
Yeah.
It's an option where you can download your FB info to other apps like Google Docs and WordPress. So
Yeah.
so these are all the features they are working on, and that's about it. So we'll see how these are being implemented in the future.
Great. Actually, so this talking about this like WhatsApp portability between these platforms. Very recently, I saw some video on LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, the iOS, Apple is gaining market share from Android over the last 1 year or so. Actually, Android was dominating the smartphone industry as a operating system for many years. I mean, they took from Nokia's Symbian OS. They started actually closing closer to about like 85%, 90% even that market share worldwide. But now recently, Apple is fighting back or for whatever the reasons. Now we see iOS share is increasing over the last
Mhm.
year and a half. Maybe due to this like privacy
Yeah.
discussions where people have the perception that if you are with Apple, you have better privacy. So that perception is there.
Mm.
Because of that, maybe people are now moving to iOS. So maybe for people who are considering that, this might actually sound great news to take your WhatsApp as well when you are moving, of course. Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hafsa. I think that's the lineup of news for today, right?
Yes. So yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our host for the main discussion today. By the way, the main discussion today is the art of storytelling for social media. So we are going to go live with that topic in a while. But in the meantime, please keep sharing this feed and invite more people to join watching this as we go for the main section. And I'm going to introduce the next host. We have three hosts today. The host who is going to handle the main session. So he's actually not a uh, new face for SyncUp Colombo community. He's none other than Tivankar. What's happening, Tivankar?
Okay. Good evening, Amita. I think I heard that same music even in sleep, when waking up, maybe having lunch. I think it's something rings in my head these days. I mean,
That's something you can't because you've been watching too much of game streaming from Shashi.
I mean, I actually watched it actually maybe one time, maybe two time to confirm what actually went. But everywhere I look, maybe on social media and probably if I go to YouTube, the first thing pops up is this music. I don't know, and you use the name that particular content creator, she went so viral in a day. I think actually, Amita, what happened there? What do you
No,
think?
actually, yeah, I mean, we wanted to take this as a quick discussion point for today's session because we are going to talk about this in detail in one of the upcoming SyncUp Colombo sessions, game streaming. Right now, I mean, like if you are from my generation, the ones who are watching this live feed today, if you are from my generation, you might be wondering why would people watch other people playing computer games? So
Yeah.
stupid, right? People would ask that question. Why would someone watch some girl or a guy playing computer game? Why would I watch it live? Why would someone watch it live? But we can ask the same question. Why are you watching Sri Lanka playing Australia live on TV? Why are you watching Mumbai Indians versus Chennai Super Kings on TV, live TV?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? So
Same
people are
sensation.
playing, same sensation.
Yeah.
Now, this game live streaming is already a huge industry. It's just like
Yes.
cricket live streaming or football live streaming. There are advertisers who are putting money for in-game advertising,
Yeah.
and that's why this game live streaming is so popular and they are making money. So this topic, Tivanka, I think we had an internal discussion with our root team, and we are actually going to do an entire session dedicated for this whole business of
Gaming and streaming. Game streaming.
gaming and
Yes. Yes.
streaming, game live streaming.
Yeah.
So I'm sure most of our viewers would love to have that discussion. So shall
Yes.
we invite people to nominate speakers for that?
Yes, and this goes out to all of you who's joining in from Facebook and LinkedIn today, and ඔයාලා අද බලන්න මොන platform එකෙන්ද ඉන්නේ. ඔයාලා දන්න gaming industry එක ගැන කතා කරන කවුරුහරි ඉන්නවා නම්, if you know that someone is really good at to talk about this industry, please suggest, so we can get them on board to a similar chat like what we are going to do today.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's many people's favorite song these days, huh?
Yes, I mean, Tarindu, come on, it's not my favorite song, but we had a chat about it in the morning. Yes, yes,
Yes. Okay, great. So, Tivanka, so why don't you introduce our the guest speaker today
yes,
for
yes.
the
So
main session?
today, I mean, we started with a story uh, which became viral. So today we have a very brilliant figure joining us today. She is someone who have been in the tech marketing industry for so many years, and is doing a really great job consulting for so many tech companies worldwide. And she's a content strategist, she's a speaker, a writer. She's none other than Kushlani De Silva. So um,
Hello,
Ivan Kushlani,
Kushlani.
hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Bhuvan.
hi, Amita. Hi, Tivanka.
Hi.
Right.
Thank you
So,
for having me.
Tivanka, I'm going to now leave it for you to continue the discussion, and I'm going to go backstage. So I'm watching from the backstage. So let's look out for a
Yes.
great conversation about storytelling.
Yes,
Okay,
Amita,
Kushlani,
and
over to you.
I think you can start sending us stars, right, when we give so
Definitely.
nice content. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll keep sending stars. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you, Amita.
Right.
Thank you, Amita.
So, hi, Kushlani. So, how things have been with you? What is happening?
Good, good. So things have been great. First of all, thank you, Tivanka, Amita, and the whole team at Apidum for giving me the opportunity to host and conduct this session today. This is the first time I'm getting involved with a session of this nature, which is a lot more conversational, which I really like. About a topic that a lot of us speak about, social media. That's how today's session started off as well. And I love some of the points brought up by Amita and Hafsa about the importance of authenticity on social media, how important it is for it to be a safe place. So it's great, and I think it has really set the stage for today's conversation. So I've been doing good. Obviously, been at home for the longest time, just like
Staying
everybody else.
safe.
Staying safe, yes, and I hope everybody who's joining us is staying safe as well. I see some familiar names on as well from the comments. It's great to see everyone here. I've been keeping busy, so I've been working as a hi Johan. I've been keeping busy as a marketing consultant. I actually started right in the middle of the pandemic back in November last year. And before that, I was with WSO2 for the longest time, 11 years. Really enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot about the scope of marketing in marketing for technology, how how you need to approach the right kinds of audiences, how you need to tone your messages, and so on. And I felt that with that experience, I wanted to see how I could make a difference and how I could add value to some of the tech startups in Sri Lanka as well, especially now that the climate for tech startups is a lot better than what it used to be. And I think
Yes.
that's very encouraging. That's great to see, and just seeing that representation makes me really happy as well. So I thought, why not start off doing this on my own, take my experiences, and see how I can add value.
and
So
and and it's been going good so far, I hope.
going good, learning a lot. I think in the last 8 months, I've had the privilege of being able to speak to founders, and just hearing their vision for their companies and how they started and why they started and where they want to go. I think that is probably the most rewarding part of this entire experience, because everybody comes into the business with their own vision and with their own set of goals. And just hearing that and hearing them speak about those goals so passionately is great. And after finishing after finishing a project with them, just being able to experience the fact that you have helped them and they are able to do something a little better than before, is, I think, the most
and
is one of
and
the most
and
rewarding parts of
and
this
you
experience.
and you get to hear a nice story.
I do. I
Yes,
hear
yes.
stories a lot, and I get to convey stories as well, which is great.
Yes. So coming to our main topic, the art of storytelling. If I put it this way, uh, people do love to hear stories, right? I mean, for the longest time, what I can see, even my parents, they love listening to the news, which it is always on the TV, maybe at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, probably. But I think even if you look at the news, it's them telling some kind of a story, right? I mean, that's what they're doing, and people love it. And let me ask you this question: why should you try to tell a story, and why actually we try to tell a story? What is the reason behind it?
Sure. So I think, just like you said, we are exposed to stories on a day to day basis in during different stages of the day. I mean, how many times would we have had a friend of ours text us, WhatsApp us, and say, "You won't believe what I have to tell you." So at the end of that message, there's a story that's going to come to them. So centered around that point exactly, stories are a really good way of getting attention. And this point about attention, I was actually reading up on this report. It's a little old, it's from last year, but it said that back in 2000, the average attention span of a human being was 12 seconds. And then in 2020, it had gone down all the way to 8 seconds. Now, there's this common saying which I use quite a lot, which is, I have the attention span of a goldfish, meaning you have a very, very short attention span. And funnily enough, the attention span of a goldfish, I don't know how they found this out, is 9 seconds. So right now, human beings have an even smaller attention span than a goldfish. So, and if you look at channels, I'll take the example of Twitter, because I'm quite active on Twitter. And if you take technology brands, they are also active on Twitter as well. Twitter, when you're on your feed and when you're scrolling, Twitter throws so many tweets at you, right? So you might not even look at a tweet for 1/10 of a second, because you're scrolling really fast till you find something that grabs your attention. So coming back to stories and how they grab attention, is that you have to be able to craft the story in a manner that grabs attention. So you can do that both visually and from what you are putting on your post. And the good thing about stories is, more often than not, you can take any experience, any event, any occurrence, any sort of plan, and you can craft it into a story. And stories can be something that happened in the past, it can be something that is happening right now, and it can even be something that happens in the future. Now, let's take something, let me take an example, right? Let's take something not very interesting. Like, let's say we're going to host a webinar, right? A
Yeah.
standard, usual
Yeah.
webinar.
The
We have a,
boring type.
yeah, the normal type, one of
Yes.
the nothing really
Yes.
special. But how can you, instead of just saying, hey, we have a webinar on this day and doing a banner with your speakers, with the date, with your company logo, why don't you build up momentum to the webinar through a story? So there will be a core topic around which the webinar is on, right? Let's say, for example, I'll take a very broad topic. Let's say it's digital transformation. And let's say the webinar is in 4 weeks' time. So maybe about 3 weeks, no, even earlier, maybe say 5 weeks before the webinar, you can start off by saying to your audience, maybe on Twitter and LinkedIn both, and say, we want to know how important digital transformation is to your business vision. And then you have a poll, right? Then you collect results from that poll, and then you say, okay, this is the audience's take on it. Is there any different kind of opinions? Here's what we think, here's what the industry is saying. And then maybe towards the maybe about a week after, or a week and a half after, you again bring in some concept of digital transformation where you talk about your interest in digital transformation. So if let's say you're a company that offers cloud migration services, for example, obviously cloud migration will definitely help you in your journey towards digital transformation. So you
Yeah.
talk about the relevance between the two. And now, throughout your social media, you've been telling this story, obviously without explicitly saying we are having a webinar on X date. You've spoken about the topic of the webinar and told a story. So your subscribers or the consumers of your social media
Content.
channel,
Yeah.
of your content, they are going to know that, okay, something's coming up. And then maybe just before you put the post about the webinar, you can talk about, you can simply say, remember all those conversations about digital transformation we were having. Here's why we are having this webinar. We have, we have an expert from digital transformation from our company speaking about it. And, here's why you should sign up. So the people who would have answered your poll, who might have reshared that external article that you posted on social media, now they're like, this is why these guys kept talking about it.
Yeah.
And now they will relate better to what you were trying to say in the first place as well. So it might take a little extra effort, and a little more, might require a little more of a thought process, but still it will have a better um, kind of response from the people who are subscribed to your content. And you don't have to do it over a period of time even. Simply you can capture it within a small video, for example, where all of the elements that I just mentioned, like why digital transformation, who is it relevant for, if you can put it in a video, or even in a single post in a compelling way, without just putting a chock full of information, but place it out nicely, that can be a story. So it doesn't have to be something too complicated.
Yeah, and just let me take a second out to tell everyone, I this is an interesting topic. Whether you are, joining on behalf of your personal career or joining on behalf of your business, I think telling a story, especially in in digital platforms, especially social media, is really important, especially for personal branding. And anyone who's joining in from Facebook, LinkedIn, because we are streaming live on both platforms, please do ask questions, because this is one of those opportunities that you will get answers from someone like Kushlani. And please do ask questions, so we'll try to pick them up and try to give our best effort in answering them. Um, so Kushlani, coming back to the topic, telling a story, and you said that if someone want to, put something out, without just saying it out loud, they can actually plan it out in phases, right? Start, building small, maybe puzzle pieces, so it will
Mhm.
at the end of the day create the entire whole story. So, what is the best? I mean, what would define this kind of a story? Like, are there any key characteristics, or maybe you can give some examples?
Sure. So I think with any story, at the end of it, there is a call to action. You have to have a call to action, right? Maybe it is not as immediate. So in the example that I provided, maybe the ultimate call to action is to get people to sign up for your webinar. But you can also look at smaller milestones. I mean, you can look at whether you want them to be motivated by your content, whether you want them to trust your content and feel like it is something valid and it's something that they should be sharing as well. So a call to action, it can be one, or it can be just one, or it can be phased, is definitely a characteristic that any story should have, because a story should not leave your audience hanging. At the end of it, they have to be able to walk away with something, whether it's motivation, inspiration, encouragement, whatever it is. And especially with stories that are more focused on personal experiences, more often than not, in those cases also the call to action is often inspiration, right? If you listen to a TED talk, that's a story, and what you derive from that most often is inspiration and motivation. If you watch, one of your favorite content creators who's created something funny, then your takeaway is that you had a good laugh. Maybe you were having
Yes.
a bad day, but you had a good laugh, and that is
Yes.
probably the best call to action that you can have. So call to action is very important. And context is also very important. Now, context is a tricky thing because it can differ significantly from story to story, right? But if your context, or if the goal that you're building your context around is curiosity and awareness and interest, then the previous example I took of taking a phased approach will really work. So you need to know the context that you're going to build the story around as well. And relevance is also very important. Like, your story has to be relevant to the audience that you're communicating it to. So you have to be able to, through, like, for example, again, what I spoke of earlier, right? You can still build a good story, you can have all of the steps, you can have the call to actions, but if your audience doesn't feel like it's not relevant for them, they're not going to buy into it.
Yes.
So the keywords that you use, the phrases, everything from the images to the terminology, all of that is also important for a story. I know it might seem like a lot for a social media post or a couple of posts, but once you get into that mindset, you won't be like, it happens unconsciously, I would say. The first couple of the first couple of posts, or the first couple of initiatives, you might have put a lot of thought into it, but once you get into the groove of things, it will come naturally.
And let me ask another interesting question, Krishlani. I mean, uh, what is the connection between storytelling and, let's say, a business? I mean, a business is something that is after more business, right? They want to survive in the market. So, would good storytelling on social media help a business directly to gain more, maybe followers, and also to gain more interest in businessing?
Yes, I would definitely think so, because even as people or brands or businesses, I feel like we are a collection of stories, and that's how have come together. So, like, if you take let's say a brand like HubSpot, for example, which I follow quite closely. HubSpot has also been created obviously as a result of their expertise, their people, all of the great work that they do, their tools, technologies. But they've also managed to build a lot of stories around community, like they're very community driven. So even their community is part of their story, like how they contribute a lot to the community through their content, through their events, through their ambassadors. So I think when you tell stories, it really helps to see. It's almost like the behind the scenes of a brand, right? You might be talking about your people through a story, you might be talking about your interests through a story. And if the content is engaging, you're going to subscribe to that content, meaning you're going to follow it. So
Yes.
if I take, I'll take a completely unrelated example from tech, and I'll take it from my personal experience, right? So none of us have traveled for the longest time, right? I think for 2.5 years now have traveled. So I recently came across this content creator on YouTube. She's called Jeannie Beanie, and she does the funniest skits of her experiences as cabin crew for Emirates. So they are short videos, but they are everything from passengers being rude to how to deal with other cabin crew, and it's a collection of very interesting stories. And I happened to see it on YouTube, and my motivation for watching that was simply to get a good laugh because they were hilarious. They were beyond hilarious. And it was also nostalgic because it was set up in in an airplane, which I haven't seen for the longest time. And, I just felt like for the current time, it just felt really relevant. So obviously, because I enjoyed the content and I got a laugh out of it, I subscribed to her channel. Then I went and followed her on Instagram, and I shared it with the rest of my friends as well, and I said, look, this bird stuff is really funny, you should check it out. So, and then that multiplies the effort. And her content is absolutely absolute storytelling, because she is retelling parts of her own experience. So every video that she creates, and now she's doing YouTube Shorts as well. But every video that she creates is a story. Either it happened to her personally, or she's seen it happen. So that combination of stories led me to get to find humor in her content. So I follow her, then I share it and I say, this is great, why don't you all follow it as well? And that multiply effect happens. Same with any other kind of technology brand, or any brand for that matter. If you convey your messages and your personality and your experiences through stories, people are going to be more receptive, because there's a lot of noise and a lot of content out there. Remember, attention spans are short. Stories help get better attention. Then that effect just gets multiplied and makes it easier.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, knowing that people always, I mean, look at different types of stories. This can also relate to what we were discussing earlier about, people love uh, to watch other people play different kinds of sports, maybe video games and stuff. I think
Yes.
that also relate to a similar scenario. Okay, we have a very interesting question. Shavindra from is on LinkedIn. Is TikTok a storytelling advertisement type media, or how do you all see? Okay, so it's all about TikTok.
Yeah.
Kushlani, what is your point of view on this question?
Yeah. So disclaimer, I'm not an expert on TikTok. Obviously, I'm privy to it because it is a social media channel that is picking up so much traction and so much attention, good and bad. But I feel like TikTok is probably one of the best storytelling channels out there, because again, I mean, if you look at the content that is posted on TikTok, it is so diverse, right? Recipes, makeup hacks, dancing, all sorts of content, and they are all kind of mini stories. And it's also good because you have the option of putting your story into a video, which is so much more effective than putting it into a whole ball of text. So I think it's a fantastic storytelling medium, and I think the content creators who are on TikTok have actually found that they've really capitalized on it. So I think it is probably one of the best storytelling platforms out there. And the fact that earlier, it was probably limited to lighter content, like more entertainment oriented content, but now it's very different. You also get more business oriented, more tech oriented content as well on TikTok. So I think that transition is happening, because it's not just the individual content creators and the FMCG brands who are finding it to be a useful mechanism. to tell their stories, but it is also the other technology, more serious, more kind of catering to the more serious audiences type of brands that are also finding it to be useful. Timanka, what do you think? I know this is a medium that we talk about quite often.
Yes, and I, while agreeing with you, yes, I think earlier it was a platform where most people, took it in a different perception. Especially Sri Lankans, they looked at it negatively. I think a couple of weeks ago we had a really interesting session about how TikTok changed the branding game. I mean, we heard the news it topping up the most downloaded app, overtaking Facebook in a very short period of time. Even I myself, for particular business reasons, I go into TikTok, and when I watch them, I actually tend to learn so many things because I see so many DIY type of content going in there, people trying out different things, and of course we get to see a lot of stories. Right? Again, it comes down to the same question, and you can, with a single swipe, one story is over, you can move on to the second one, and it's a different experience. And if something is really interesting, we would end up going into that particular content creator's profile and probably want to follow them for the future, because we would want to see more content coming up from them. So and I think we help Shavindra to understand that TikTok is a really good platform if you want to do storytelling. I think it is something that is having a good future. And okay, Tarindu is asking, what is the best digital medium for storytelling?
Right.
What do you think,
Interesting
Shani?
question. Yeah. Interesting question, Thank you. Thank you for that. So I think again it will largely depend. It'll depend on a couple of things. One, it will depend on the kind of stories that you're telling and the kind of outcome that you want out of those stories. And it will depend on your audience as well. Again, I'll take again another example. I'll talk about myself a little bit and the kind of business that I'm in. So I, as a consultant, I have to be able to tell a story around my experiences, why I am relevant to this industry, and why anybody should spend their time, talking to me or even working with me. So, what kind of stories do I tell? Who are the people that I want to tell those stories to? And how can I tell the story in a way that grabs attention? Now, I know that I see a lot of other similar professionals, people who do work similar to what I do, whether they might be in different disciplines slightly, like, there are CEO coaches now, there are, mentors, there are other consultants, and I see a lot of video content being created on social media, particularly on LinkedIn. And these are also, very short videos, something like a tip for the week, or points to ponder, things to think about. And those, I've seen them to be very, very effective. So the medium is obviously video, and the channel is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn being sort of an ecosystem for professionals is a really good place to tell your story. And if you're telling it in format of a video, all the better, because the people on LinkedIn also have not so much short attention spans, but they don't have a lot of time on their hands, and they're probably on LinkedIn for a particular purpose, to see what the community is talking about and what they're sharing. So I haven't got to the point of video just yet, but I try to share my stories in the form of posts, which is the easiest, thing to do on LinkedIn. But how I craft those stories is, again, I try to talk about something that is pressing at the moment. Like recently, I posted just a couple of days ago. I posted saying that technology companies are finding it very difficult to hire marketers, because there are a lot of marketers out there, but those who are fluent in technology marketing, they are a little difficult to find. So there's a bit of a gap there. And that was just a simple post, just text with a picture which says we are hiring or recruiting,
Yes, I
something
actually
like
saw that. Yes, I had put a comment
yeah.
as well. Yes.
Yeah, and then that got a lot of traction, which I didn't expect. So I said I'm planning this initiative, but again, it was a story. So I was using LinkedIn, I was using that post to tell a story that I understand that technology companies are finding it difficult to get the right tech marketers, and tech marketers might not know which technology companies are hiring. So that is the background of the story, this gap. There are two parties, but they are far apart. There's nobody in the middle to kind of bring them together. So I'm saying I am here to bring you all together and bridge
The
that
gap.
gap. Yeah,
Yeah.
the gap. So the outcome that I wanted out of that story was interest in this initiative. So, and how I measured the interest was by seeing, like how you had commented and how others had commented, and how people had reached out to me on Messenger. So that was the story I was telling. So I could have simply made a statement saying technology companies are finding it difficult to hire, and just kept it at that. But I gave something extra in that context, and I just brought it up. Parents, I hope that answered your question. But I brought it up to say that there are different. You can pick the medium based on your audience, and you can use multiple mediums provided that the elements of the story capture the essence of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think Kushlani, that the personal touch where you actually brought up the recent experience that you had when you were doing a storytelling on LinkedIn. I think that actually summed everything up. Okay, Tarun is saying thank you, of course. Thank you for the detailed answer.
You're welcome.
Yes, and we had a very interesting question right towards the end when we were explaining the previous answer. What kind of tactics can we use to optimize the targeting of stories to reach multiple audiences? Tisali is asking this. So, I mean, I think that is the goal of everyone. You want to reach
Yeah.
probably the world, right? That's what
Yes.
everyone need.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So again, I think you can, when you start building your story, there will be a common, some of the points I mentioned earlier also, like the common scenario, your goal, what you're trying to achieve, all of that. But our audiences, you might be having audiences that have different motivations. So your story, how you make your story appealing to one person or to one set of one audience, might be a little different to how you have to make it appealing for another audience. So in instances like that, as much as you need to think about how you're going to target the story to reach multiple audiences in terms of the actual tactics, you have to also go back and look at your story to see how you can kind of fine tune the story for it to for it to be compelling for those different audiences. And then you might end up with a series of mini stories as well. Again, like if you take your personal life, right, if there's an incident that happened to you or a story, the way you tell it to your mom and the way you tell it to your friend is different,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Same
different.
story.
It's
Yes,
yes.
same story, different
and
target.
there are certain things that you will explicitly leave out,
Exactly,
and yes, you
exactly.
would not go all in. Yes,
All in, exactly.
yes,
So
yes.
I think crafting figuring out the story in the right way for the right audience is very important as well. Tactically, again, I think Tisal, you also need to think of the channels that those audiences reside in. So, for example, again, if it's tech and you're talking about a big topic like digital transformation, you might need to align the story that in a way that it's compelling to a CEO, and in a way that it's compelling to a project architect or a software architect, and then distribute that story that is catered for that audience into the channels that they consume. So think of the storyline, think of the message, think of the channels, and think of the outcomes, all catered towards different audiences.
Yeah. So a few interesting data points that you need to consider when you are trying to reach multiple audiences, because the same message would not work for everyone. For an example, the language. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
English could be the universal language, but there are certain parts of the world who don't consider English as their primary, converse mode. So probably that could be also one example. We
Definitely.
have another question from Shavindra again. How can storytelling being told to children and teenagers? I think this is a bit of a controversial area, but something that people would want to try it out, especially certain brands.
Yeah, okay. Interesting question. I'm wondering how to go about that one. So I think again, I believe now the potential of advertising to younger children is being restricted. Also, I believe I saw something in the news recently about that, where they're actually for a particular age group they're going to restrict being able to advertise to these groups. So I think again this is like nothing to do with my work experience, because in the work that I do, these are not the typical target audiences that we speak to. But if you're in FMCG, I'm sure these are two of the key target audiences that we have. So I would suppose that again, your stories, I think you can still apply the same concepts, but I think one of the most important things in storytelling, whether it's to children, teenagers, adults, seniors, whomever it is authenticity. You mustn't never try to tell a story that is not yours. You can draw inspiration from other stories, other brand stories. It's completely fine, and that's how we build communities also, by finding inspiration from others. But it's important to be authentic, especially in storytelling to children and teenagers. So that's one thing that I can stress on, that I can't stress on enough, because that's very important. Because the target groups that you mentioned here are extremely are quite easily influenced, I would say. So that, I think, authenticity is one thing that is really important here. Shavindra, I hope you're asking about storytelling in the context of marketing, and not the standard stories that that we tell uh, kids.
Yeah, and he's adding more to his question series of questions. And thank you, Shavindra, for being an engaging audience member, asking a lot of questions. Won't the situation get employers probably got stuck primarily? Um, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
but
I'm not too clear on
on
that.
probably was he trying to connect connect this part to the same question he asked about the storytelling being told to children and teenagers. Shavindra, if you can be more clear on the question, maybe we
Yes.
can give another attempt on answering that. And in the meantime, Kushlani, uh, like do you think that when it comes to telling stories, probably you need to stick to, okay, let's say certain businesses, they would decide, okay, we will put one post today, maybe another one in 2 days, and probably we will not post anything for the next week. And what matters when it comes to consistency in storytelling?
Yeah. So I think consistency. So actually, even before that, I one thing is storytelling shouldn't be forced. I think,
Right.
because every incident, or every occurrence within your company might not necessarily be story worthy. And if you try to make something which is not story worthy a story, then you fall into this other trap, right? This other trap of this common trap of social media, where you might not have something valuable to say, but for the sake of posting, or for the sake of meeting a daily or a weekly
Just to
target.
maintain the routine, you just end up doing it. Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we post this I think this applies to us as individuals as well, right? We suddenly in the middle of the day, this happens to me, right? I feel like, oh, I didn't tweet today, I have to tweet something. But that
Right.
shouldn't be the case, right? Because that is not the expectation. But if you have something valuable to tell your community, to tell your audience, and if you feel like, even if if it's something internal, let's say it was something that, again, if it was a technology brand and you had a serious support issue with the customer, and you learn something out of it, I think that's a story that has enough validity to be able to communicate it, to be communicated to the rest of your audience. So I think consistency is important in the stories that you tell, and even within the story. But there will be plenty of instances where something doesn't warrant for a story, or doesn't fit the storytelling exercise. So in instances like that, it doesn't have to be a story, it can be a standard post. We are having a webinar, we are speaking at an event, we are sponsoring an event, we've written this blog, and that's perfectly fine. It's just, in the if you look at the whole scope or the whole ecosystem of your social media communications, storytelling should be an important part of it, I think, for attention, for engagement, and for your community to keep growing. That's what's important. That's why we keep speaking about, giving people interesting content, tidbits, and continuity in that story is important, in a sustainable, to maintain things in a sustainable way.
And since we are also, reaching the top of the hour, but we can take Prantika's question as the last. Interesting how effective to use influencers for brand storytelling. I think there are people who's doing it really nice, and there are
Yes.
people who actually fail big time doing it, right?
Yeah. So this is a great question, and I think it's something that we are seeing quite a lot these days. So again, I'll respond to this question, not from my experience in technology marketing, but from my experience in being a human being, because as a human being, we are
Yes.
all
Yeah.
exposed to this. So I think, again, it is effective. And maybe instead of the word influencers, I'll use the word content creators. So if the content creators that you pick to tell, to convey your brand story, if they are relevant to their audience, probably if they fit within the same demographics, if your target audience is 18 to 25-year-old females who are interested in skincare and makeup, and your content creator fits within that category, he or she is able to resonate with that audience, then your audience is going to respond to that story better. And one of the most important things, I think, in using content creators for brand storytelling is they have to personally experience that brand. If you're sending them your merchandise, they have to use it, and it is that user experience story that they have to communicate, I think. Without it being, I don't know if it happens, honestly, I don't have experience in that domain, but the best way to tell an authentic story is to live that experience. So I'm quite interested in skincare and makeup as well, and I follow a lot of, like, beauty and makeup content creators on YouTube and on other social media channels. And something that is commonly done by makeup and skincare brands is that they send packages of their new products, or new lines, to content creators for them to try it out. And then typically how it goes is they use it, and then they talk about the experience, and they say, and some content creators are very genuine. Even if it has been sent to them in PR for them to tell a story, if they don't like a particular product, they will be very open about it, and that's a good story, that's an authentic story. So they will say, this didn't work for me because I have a certain type of skin, but it can work for somebody else if you have a different type of skin. So very authentic, very good story, and very relevant. So I think, again, with some of those characteristics, if if the content creators that you're using for your story match your audience, they are authentic, they are doing it with the intention of actually telling the truth and giving something of value, then I think it's something that can work.
Yeah. And Kushlani, I mean, we have almost reached the end of the session, but there's this one question. Probably we will take it last, and we will not take any further questions because The time is already up.
Yeah.
What do you think about using an consistent avatar instead of humans for branding stories? Right. Just before I throw this question to Kushlani, I want to remind everyone to join our Facebook group. It's SyncUp Colombo. You just can write it up, SyncUp Colombo on Facebook, and ask your questions there, and you can suggest different topics and people that you want us to bring them up. Here's our email address, and you can always drop an email to us, giving us feedback and suggestions. So throwing the question back to you, Kushlani. So consistent avatar instead of
That's
human branding.
an interesting question, Tisal, and I think this has been like great, and he's asked some really good questions. So again, for me personally, I would probably be a bit averse if I am not seeing, an actual person behind a story or behind a brand, because I find it more relatable to see another kind of human being on the other end of it, no matter what your brand is, because it is a bunch of human beings who come together to bring out the essence of that brand. But I have seen this being used again in certain, maybe in like the deep tech kind of industries of AI, for example. This does happen. And I think it's interesting again, and I think certain audiences might like it. You do have certain audiences who are quite introverted as well, and seeing this sort of avatar might have a certain level of appeal for them as well. So it's certainly an interesting concept, I think, and something that I'm seeing. If it works again, what I would like to say is, if it works for your audience and context is very important. If it works for your context, and if it works for the story that you're trying to say, then absolutely yes. If your audience is the kind of audience who will relate better with this figure or this persona that you create, and sometimes it's a good thing, because maybe sometimes the persona that you're trying to create or associate to your brand, you can't find a person who fits that persona. So you come up with an avatar. So I think if it works for your audience, by all means go for it. And if you do it, please let me know how the results are, and how people relate. I would love to see how something like this works.
Yeah, maybe probably use someone like Apple Sri or Cortana from
Mhm.
Microsoft. I don't know.
Yes,
Yes, probably we can use either of them because they are becoming smarter. So Kushlani, I think we've reached the top of the hour, and we had some really good questions from the audience, and
sure.
you've given us really great content in terms of storytelling and how we can relate that to our personal and business requirements. I think that is a very questionable area that most people are finding it hard to execute, to tell a story properly on social media that would actually add a lot of value to their business. And to everyone who joined us today from Facebook and LinkedIn, thank you so much, and all the questions that you asked and staying with us. And I hope that we were able to bring something interesting. And please stay in touch with us. We'll be coming to you every week and bringing you different types of speakers with interesting topics. And of course, Kushlani, maybe you got something to tell to the ones who are joining in today.
Sure. Once again, first of all, thank you, Tibanka, Amita, and everyone for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to all of you, and to everybody who joined in. Thank you so much. Lots of great questions, questions that really made me think a little bit as well. I hope you found the session useful, and you walked away with something that you can hopefully use in your careers and the day to day. And if you would like to have a further conversation about storytelling for social media, you can reach me on LinkedIn or Twitter. But yeah, I know it's I know it's been an hour of your time, so I definitely hope it's been productive.
Yes, and right before we wind up, I want to give a sneak peek to what is coming up on the next session. So you will get to hear something interesting from someone coming from Amazon. So I will not tell too much about it. So make sure that you join us for the next session, and one of my colleagues will be there giving you a lot of interesting content. Once again, thank you so much, Kushlani. I think you, despite your busy schedule, you were able to give us some time. I think we've been having this conversation for weeks, trying to figure out the best time to do this, and finally you made it. Thank you so much, and hope you have a very good evening and followed by a good weekend. And stay safe.
Likewise.
And
Thank you so much.
yes, and to everyone else, please stay indoors whenever possible and stay safe. And please keep in touch. Have a great weekend coming ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.